So most people who make decisions about border policy have never dealt with it firsthand. Today, we're honored to have America's sheriff, Sheriff Mark Lamb, with us, who has been on the ground with the border issues for a lot of years now, and he's getting ready to take that experience to Washington. So welcome, Sheriff Lamb. We appreciate you coming here.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate being here. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's something that you've seen personally that the people making the decisions about border policy just don't fully understand?
Well, you hit it right on your opening. You said the majority of the people that are actually passing these laws, making these laws, have actually never been on the border. They don't understand it. They don't understand the border security piece of it. They don't understand the immigration piece of it. While those two intertwine, they are still two separate issues. I would say the biggest problem in Washington, D.C. is the majority of those people really just don't care about the American people. I know people are going to say, well, that's a real broad statement and kind of a very indicting statement, but it is true. They care about winning elections. They care about staying in power, and they don't care enough to show up to understand the issues at hand. And it's not just the border. I know we're going to focus on the border, but I've been spending a lot of time meeting with the sugar industry, meeting with, the cotton industry, all these different industries. And I talk to them and I say, how many of these folks actually take time to find out how the issue will affect us as Americans and maybe the people in their district? And you'd be shocked to know, maybe not shocked, that they don't get a lot of calls. So when bills hit their table, they're not doing the research and they don't understand it fully to make a vote on it. So when you ask what is one of the most alarming issues, I would say it's people in Washington, D.C. voting on something really impactful to the American people, by the way, that they have no knowledge about.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think we as just the average citizen, we feel that when there are laws that are passed, and we're like, well, why would they do that? That doesn't seem right to us.
So are they almost like scratching each other's back? It's like, if you do this, I'll do that, but they really don't care in the end?
No, it's become really politics. It might be some scratch your back, scratch my back, whatever, but it's probably more politics than anything. The Democrat side has really been polarized against President Trump. So if President Trump is for border security, they're going to be on the opposite side of that, even if it hurts Americans. The other day there was somebody in Chicago, a woman that was shot by an illegal alien, and it was on a pier. And to read the comments from the folks that are part of the Chicago government to say, well, they startled him because they weren't supposed to be there. What do you mean they weren't supposed to be there? He wasn't supposed to be there. He should have never been in this country. 24, 7 days a week, he should not have been there. So they shouldn't have had to worry about startling somebody here illegally to the point where they would shoot one of them. So they just don't understand the American problem, and they are so hell-bent on covering for people in this country illegally. And I think large in part, we're seeing now because of the Save America Act, and I know I'm diving into a couple different issues, but there's also intertwined that we now see as an issue that 80% Republicans, Democrats, whites, Hispanics, blacks all agree with, that you should have to show ID to vote. 80% of those people believe in that, yet Senate does not want to pass this bill. Why? Because they know that will affect their ability to win elections. They're telling you out of one side of their mouth that illegals aren't voting, then why should you care if those people have to show ID?
Exactly. We had Bob Hughes on, and he's been part of the recount and part of all of this going on in Arizona. And he agrees. He said, all we say is, even when Kerry Lake and, the other elections, all you have to do is show ID. It's like, lock your door and you're not going to get criminals in your house, but they just won't do it.
Well, you two know, you're attorneys. Everything you do in this country, not only do you have to show a form of ID, most of the time you have to show multiple forms of identification to prove who you are. I think voting should be at the top of the list of having to prove your citizenship in this country. Recently, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, right after I finished the Senate race, the recorder for Pinal County calls me and says, hey, look, we've been cleaning up our voter rolls. You are on the list of those people that need to come and improve citizenship so that we can keep you on the voter roll. I didn't care. I had no problem with it. I grabbed my passport. I drove down to the recorder's office. I handed them my passport. Boom. It was that quick. They made the adjustment in there. They said proof of citizenship provided. I had zero problem with that. If any American has a problem with that, then they probably shouldn't be voting anyway. And what we're doing is we're catering to these people who are too lazy to go get an ID maybe, but I think everybody has an ID. It's really, when you boil it down to it, they are protecting people, and they're actually protecting processes like mail-out ballots, where it's really difficult for checks and balances to be applied to determine if those people sending that ballot back are really who they say they are, or if they are a citizen of this country. And so I don't think there is anything wrong with asking for identification to vote. I think it should be the highest standard of proof of citizenship in this country, because look at the disaster it's caused by allowing people, probably here illegally, to vote in our elections.
When we were in Greece, it was crazy because the woman said to me, wait a minute, you have non-citizens voting in America? I have to fly back to where I was born to vote in Greece. I mean, you can't, it's where you're born.
That's
you
right.
have
The entire country was migrating at that time for these elections in Greece. It was countrywide. And we don't pay enough attention to that. We don't give it any credence as far as the importance for a democracy to be able to vote from your citizens to protect those citizens.
Exactly. And look, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. And it's really important that part of the republic is that we have that vote. We vote in elected officials. That's what a republic is, that represent our voice. And being that it's so important, I think that we have to ensure that those who are electing people to pass laws, like we talked about with the border stuff, pass laws that affect Americans, we should know for a fact that those people that are voting are American citizens. And I think we should set the bar much higher. I'm not a fan of mail-out ballots. Unless you are incapable of showing up to vote, I don't think mail-out ballots should go out. We're the only country that does this. And if you were to ask America, I've talked to other countries, if you go ask the State Department in another country, hey guys, what do you think about our election system? What should we do? Don't do mail-out ballots. That's what our country will tell another country. Yet what do we do here? We send out mail-out ballots. Why? Because they know that is one of the easiest ways that they can fraud the game. And I think if you take a lot of this away, you're going to see that this country is far more red than what these past elections have indicated. I think there is a real problem when you look at the total of votes that came in for Joe Biden and President Trump in the 2020 election versus last year. And you're going to tell me that many more people, what was it, 18 million more people voted in that election? No, I am sorry. No way, no how.
Oh, no, it's total corruption.
Yeah, totally agree with you. So, Sheriff Lim, you're right. You kind of jumped in. We hit a lot of issues.
I know.
So
I've
far.
been,
we
I've
love
been
it.
like shotgunning different things out. Sorry.
I love it.
Love it. And I want to keep going with more of that. We really appreciate that. I want to back up for a second, though. Is there one pivotal moment from you that you thought to yourself, you know what? I need to run for office. I need to get involved from a policymaking perspective.
Well, let me take it back even further, because when I was a gang and drug detective at Salt River, I didn't like the direction of the country because I thought that Obama was really undermining the relationship between law enforcement and the community. And that was key to really tearing away at this republic. They needed to create that distrust. And so I could see that. Plus, I realized we needed better leadership in law enforcement. And so instead of being the guy that just sat and complained about it, I wanted to actually do something about it. So I decided in 2011, I'm gonna run for sheriff. Everybody thought I was crazy. The people I worked with thought, whatever. And I made decisions at that point, including taking a $25,000 pay cut to go to Pinal County initially and take home car, really good job as a gang and drug detective, to go back to patrol, to build towards being the sheriff. That I finally ran and won the election in 2016, 5 years later. So when good things take time and hard work and a lot of sacrifice. Then when I got into 2023, I realized the border was the number one issue. And while the sheriff is an executive position, which I love, I think the executive branch of the government is far more fun to be in than the legislative branch. But I also saw that the legislative branch had abdicated their real power that the founding fathers gave them. They had abdicated that because they're afraid of losing elections and losing votes. So instead of making hard decisions and hard votes, they just pass it on to each other like a volleyball back and forth to the Senate and the House. And they use the filibuster to hide behind in the Senate to not make tough decisions. And what that does is it abdicates their responsibility off onto the judicial and the legislative branches. Then we have executive orders, which we saw during COVID and we continue to see because that's the only way anybody can get anything done in this country because the legislative branch has become feckless. And you also see the judicial branch where they have taken on way too much power and they are legislating from the bench, going outside the lines of the Constitution in many cases. We know that for a fact because a lot of these cases get overturned when they go to the Supreme Court. So now I'll answer the question. So sorry about that. 2023 comes along and I realize the border is the number one issue. There's an old Danish saying that says, he who has the ability has the responsibility. And I could see that we needed somebody in Washington that really understood this piece of it. And when we lost our kids in 2022, lost my son and my granddaughter, my daughter-in-law were killed by a drunk driver.
I'm so sorry about that.
Thank you. At that point, my wife and I realized when the smoke kind of cleared and the fog cleared, I guess I should say, we realized that there is no guarantee for tomorrow. And the only thing we take with us in this life is what we do. And so we made a conscientious decision that we were going to do something about it. And so we ended up jumping in the Senate race. And, there's a saying that you have to be willing to give up what's good for what's great. And we had a good job as sheriff. I loved it. I could have stayed there as long as I wanted to, but we needed to shoot for what was great. Not that Senate is better, but I think that our ability to do more for Americans and for the Republic was very important to us. And so I ran for Senate. I didn't win. I didn't really want to be back in politics, to be honest with you. But as last year progressed, we got into October, we realized once again, we felt that call to the service and to get back in the arena. And it's just not in my nature to stand on the corner and wait for somebody else to run into the building. And so we decided to jump into this race. It is a legislative position, so I'm going to have to I'll be getting into that, but I'm not naive to it. I've been doing it on a state level, fighting for and against bills. I've been on a national level fighting and working on a lot of bills on the national level and through Congress and Senate. So this is not new to me. I think I've become the best candidate to be able to hit the ground running, especially with knowledge as it relates to the border, managing a large budget, having been in government from the other side, from the executive side. So sorry to take such a long answer, but I wanted to
love it. No.
Really lay out the groundwork of where I am at, why I'm at where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I love it. We're chill over here. So you can take as long as you want. We just want to hear everything that you have to say because that's awesome. I believe that you are a very strong candidate and I'm excited to see you win this.
Thank you. Well, and I'd say Washington needs more cowboy hats and belt buckles.
Oh, true.
I spent a lot of time in Washington and there's some good people there. And I don't know if you've ever read the book, and if you haven't, it's a really great book, but it's by Frédéric Bastiat from the mid 1800s. He was a Frenchman and he wrote the book called The Law. And it is a really great book because it talks about life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. It talks about America, how they were embodying that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then it talks about the law, of course, talks a lot about plunder, legal and illegal plunder. And we all know what illegal plunder is. Somebody steals from you, frauds you, embezzlement. That's the illegal plunder. But where we've gotten in this country is the legal plunder. 35% tax is legal plunder. That's theft. They just passed a law that they made it not against the law, but that's theft. Anytime somebody steals 30, 40% of your income, I'm sorry, that's plunder. That'd be the definition of plunder.
Oh,
Totally agree. Hey, real quick, if you're new here, my name is Ken Gerber, and I run Gerber Injury Law here in Phoenix, Arizona. If you've been hurt in an accident, I want you to hear me clearly. The insurance company is not on your side. They have lawyers working for them from day one. You deserve the same. At my firm, we take on car accidents, slip and falls, and all types of personal injury cases across Arizona. And here's what I tell every single client. You pay nothing unless we win. No upfront costs, no risk, just me and my team fighting hard to get you what you're actually owed. If you've been injured, don't wait and don't settle cheap. Give us a call. The consultation is completely free, and I'll personally make sure we take care of you. All right, back to the show.
The fraud that's existed. So they continue to tax us even though they've had fraud to this level. You know, think about it in your law firm. If somebody engaged in your services and then they lost a bunch of money, got frauded through it, you would go back and say, I'm sorry, we're going to represent you for free. We're going to make this right. No. Our government says, here, you owe us taxes more. We got to charge you more because we got to keep funding the fraud. I mean, that's really where we're at. And this has become legal plunder. Let me encapsulate this real quick and I'll get it back to you. He says in the book, look, a lot of people go to government because they're frustrated with the legal plunder. And so they decide, I'm going to do something about it. Then they run for office and then they get there and then they realize, well, they're on the pirate ship now and the booty's pretty good. And so now they decide, I'm just going to be part of the legal plunder instead of actually stopping the legal plunder. And I think that happens all too often. And so when I say we need more cowboy hats and belt buckles, I think we need more honest, true servants of the people that are there not for the plunder, that are there to actually stop the legal plunder and pare government back to where the founding fathers had it.
And that definitely, you know, personally, my dad was, you know, chief of police of the different cities in Chicago, and he was called the cleanup guy. Most people didn't like him because he was the cleanup guy. And he became the chief of police of Cook County Sheriffs in Chicago. And I remember one day he came up to me and he had a remote start for his car. And I said, Dad, why do you have a remote start for your car? He goes, I don't want to get blown up. And I said, Dad, how would the bad guys get to your car? He goes, honey, I'm talking about Cook County. He goes, I'm coming in there to clean up. I have to have a remote start because I don't want them blowing me up. And I know that he went in there to clean the county. And unfortunately, the sheriff at the time ended up getting on that pirate ship. And, you know, I don't know how much, you know, my dad has passed away now in 2015, but because of him trying to clean the county, my dad ended up not being at the county any longer because they didn't like that because he was investigating crooked judges and things like that. And so I saw it firsthand where, you know, he left the county and there was the phone company at our house. I said, Dad, what's going on? Oh, they're taking all the taps off our phone. I said, who tapped our phone? Oh, it was the county. So my dad went into county to clean it up and ended up, you know, not working out as he thought it would, because it's not very easy when you try to clean up something as dirty as Cook County.
Well, and I also think that we see it currently when you hear about the net worth of somebody who's running for office, and then within a short time of them getting in office, their net worth is so much higher. And you know, normal people, everyday people can't do that with their net worth.
No. And I'm glad you brought that up. And thank you to your dad for his service. And I tell you, I don't worry about bad guys. I've never worried about the cartels. I worry about our federal government, because when you start poking the bear, they don't like that. And it is easier oftentimes to take you out. And frankly, look, they can make it look like somebody else did it. And look, some people are going to listen to this and go, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. No, you're naive. Trust me, they are very capable. And when power is it's the most addictive drug there is. And people will do anything to maintain power and keep themselves where they're at. And your dad is, you know, like what he said is true. And now they use lawfare to come after you. Look no further than President Trump. They tried to shoot him. They tried to go to his house. They tried to charge him. They took his money. They charged him for all these things. They applied laws that had never been applied in that way before. And they weren't even really appropriately applied. They've been overturned, but they still did it. And so, yes, That's a problem. And then to the second point, Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is entwined in this fraud stuff out in Minneapolis. Here's the thing, Waltz, Omar, Jacob Fry, if any of these people, there's two things. If you did not know the fraud was going on, you're an idiot and you should be removed from office because of your ineptness. Number two, if you did know about it, you should go to prison because you just frauded the American people of probably, when it's all said and done, tens of billions of dollars. It's certainly going to be higher than $10 billion. So when you look at Ilhan Omar, that should trigger an investigation. That's what we call in law enforcement as a clue. And when a clue comes up like that, so strong, pointing towards impropriety in a moment where fraud was happening in her community with the Somalian community, and she's their representative, and she passes laws to make these types of programs easier, she should be one of the first ones they look at, especially when you go from 30,000 to 30 million in assets, and you claim that it's because you have a winery. Well, that's the most successful winery I've ever seen, especially when you just started it.
But it's like you have all these bad people protecting her.
The fox is guarding the hen house, and that's the problem. And now we've gotten to where the corruption is just so, the guy who wrote, all of a sudden I've had a brain fart. He's another Frenchman. I'll come back to it. He wrote a series of books, and in there he wrote, I don't know why I can't think of his name all of a sudden.
I would say it's perimenopause, but you're a man. I have perimenopause.
It's work brain. I'm out here and trying to do some work today. Anyway, he says that the American Republic will endure until the day that the Congress realizes it can bribe the public with the public's money. And that's what's happened, is Congress is really, they're bribing the people with the people's money now.
Oh, totally.
Well, switching gears for just a second, we've done a lot of talking here about the feelings, the sometimes strong feelings about ICE, the ICE agents and what they're doing and their run-ins with people who are sometimes too emotionally charged from the American public. What are your thoughts about that? And we've had firearms experts, use of force experts on here. And what do we say to the people who are not understanding the way law enforcement works?
Well, first of all, those people shouldn't be out there standing in the way of law enforcement. Those guys don't pass laws. So if you have an issue, the First Amendment is very specific. It says that you have the right to peaceably assemble peaceably, and to petition your government for a redress of grievances. What we've had is the courts over time have adopted this word riot, that it's okay. But that's not true. Like they said in the Constitution, the First Amendment is very clear. It says to assemble peaceably. And then you petition, which means you write a petition to your government to redress your grievances. Now, let's expand it to where these folks now show up. They shouldn't go stand in front of ICE. That's against the law. That's obstruction of law enforcement doing their job. In most cases, those people are breaking the law. The only difference is people think it's okay because they're not in handcuffs. The reason they're not in handcuffs is they don't have the bandwidth to go and arrest hundreds of people that are there breaking the law. But make no mistake about it, what they're doing violates the code. If you read the code, it violates the code, both on a state level and on a federal level. They're violating that law, and they should be held accountable. That's what makes Americans think this is okay. And it also makes them think that this is happening all over. It's only happening in a couple places. These are paid agitators. We know from experience. They show up, they're paid, they're given signs, they're given all the materials to stand there in 10 degree below weather and fight against ICE when ICE has no ability to change the law. That only can happen in front, at Congress and Senate. So they're not going there because they know it won't get any attention from the media. The media plays this up and makes Americans think it's happening more than it is. the majority of ICE removals are happening, and most Americans have no idea. Why? Because it happens peacefully if people don't actually impede law enforcement in doing their job. And what happens is you get the Alex Preddy and you get the Renee Good, who are then killed. They were pawns of these people who have a higher agenda. And it's a socialist agenda, by the way. These people want socialism in this country, and they're willing to create riots and pay for this kind of disorderly assemblies to be able to further their agenda. And they don't care that those two people lost their lives. They actually are okay with it because it actually gave them more movement behind what they're trying to do. And the reality is, ICE does a great job. They've been tasked to do a very difficult job in a very difficult time. And I wouldn't want to have to be doing their job right now, but they're doing it. And where local law enforcement works with federal government, you don't have problems. Shame on those guys in Minnesota. This never would have happened if the Minnesota Police Department would have done their job and responded to calls for service when ICE needed their help. And if they would have held these people accountable that were obstructing law enforcement, Renee Good would still be alive. She might be in jail for obstruction, and so would Alex Preddy.
Absolutely agree. And I saw President Trump said something that he has proof that George Soros has been paying for these agitators, and he's going to try and do something with the RICO Act.
RICO investigation, right, which I think is the way to go with that.
I would love it. I think it's absolutely a RICO investigation, and they should be able to do this. The problem that Americans see is we don't see accountability. And I talk to Americans every day. And look, President Trump he's got so many layers underneath him that are fighting against him when he tries to do something. Just because we change the head of the Justice Department doesn't mean there's not a slew of lawyers who still hate President Trump or don't want him to be able to be successful. Same within the FBI and other federal agencies. And what this does is this actually causes problems. We don't get the work done. So then the Americans see it and we say, yeah, let's get him. And then nothing happens, to the point now where most Americans are like, what? I mean, it's the boy who cried wolf at this point. Most Americans are saying nobody's ever going to be held accountable. And that's what's frustrating for Americans.
It feels like that, especially with them saying with the Epstein files and all that, everyone's just like, it's just so big. How do we handle and bring all of that, everyone accountable, make them accountable?
Look, I don't think that investigation, yes, the players are big names. You have to have an appetite to go after them. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the people at play are also big donors in politics in general, not saying one side or the other. These folks know that they can continue to fund politicians to go back to Washington, D.C. or local politicians. And we're seeing firsthand the benefit of that these folks are not held accountable, even when we're starting to have the covers pulled back on all this. This is why they just wanted Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to be the scapegoats and throw them under the bus, and then nobody else goes to jail. And look, I think that probably the most egregious thing, and if you read the scriptures, it's better that a millstone be tied around your neck and you throw them to the bottom of the ocean than you take advantage of a child. And I think that children, the crimes against children, I don't care who is involved, they should be held accountable. And I think that's the way the majority of Americans feel. And look, I don't know what I can do, but I hope to be a voice of reason and a voice of a drive for accountability when I get to Washington, D.C. And because it needs to happen.
Well, I think we are in total agreement with that as well. Can you tell us a little bit about how your personal values, your personal faith comes into play with all that? You mentioned the scriptures, and that's something that we feel strongly about as well. How is that coming into play for you with what you did as sheriff and now taking that to Washington as well?
When you have a strong belief in what is right and good in this world, it gives you a much more clear path and a clear line where you don't cross. For example, COVID. COVID for me, I was one of the few people in this country, certainly in the state, that said, we're not doing the lockdowns, we're not doing the mask mandates, we're not doing the vaccines. And it came with a lot of pressure on top of it. But then people would say to me, they'd say, was this hard, Sheriff? And I was like, no, actually, it wasn't hard at all. You know why? Because the line of good and evil was so distinct for me, of what was right, what was constitutional. And so that made it very easy for me. Why? Because my faith. Look, I think this country, what we need now more than ever, besides cowboy hats and belt buckles, but even greater than that, this country needs to get back to God and the Constitution. Our faith in God has faltered. We have tolerated this nonsense, this insanity that we've allowed to permeate into society, where we kill unborn children, where we allow men to become women, women to become men, and we've pushed this as if it's something that we should accept and tolerate, and that if we don't, we're not good people. No. Tolerance is not a great word. Tolerance, look, I raised 5 kids. Some of them made some bad decisions. I didn't tolerate those. I can't make decisions for them, but I still loved my children, even though I rebuked them when they were out of line or when there was something amiss. We rebuked them. We taught them correct principles. We didn't tolerate bad behavior. In this country, we have catered to this insanity in many cases, and it is ungodly in many cases, and it's pulled us away. We've deteriorated the family unit. We've encouraged people to put their career before having a family, before raising children. Our birth rate is too low. Same with Europe, France, England, Germany, Spain. They're done. They don't have the birth rate to sustain the country as is, and so they will become countries of immigrants. They're trying to do the same thing here. The only way back out of that is through God, family values. And I think when you're focused in that area, it makes your decision making much easier. I am unapologetic about my belief and my love for God, family, freedom, and the Constitution. And I will do everything I can to protect that. Even if I have to run for Congress, I'll do what I can to protect it.
I love that. I always say it comes back to home. That's where we're teaching. And a lot of people want the world to be teaching their kids. And they're not giving them the tools at home because they're just too busy, maybe on their own phone or doing their own career, doing things that they don't take being a parent seriously.
They don't. I look, men don't understand the importance of responsibility as a father. I think women have failed to understand the majesticness of bringing another life into this world and to be a mother and to raise that child. And I think society has catered to pushing people away from that, saying it's not okay. Look, I'm a strong believer that it's okay to be a man, a strong man. You should be capable of violence, because if you're not, you're just a weak man. You should be capable of violence, but know how to harness that. And that's what makes good men. That's what makes this country great, is you have great, real strong warriors who are gentle, but they are capable of violence. And we need more men like that in this country. That's what keeps evil at bay, not weak men who don't know how to defend themselves, who have no muscle on their body. I mean, it's just, we've allowed this to say that's normal now. And then we've said, we push the women out to go work. And instead of saying, hey, look, we need to bring children into this world. I'm a traditional family guy. I'm not saying that I don't think we should have people working if they want to go work, but I think we should shift the focus back to families, family values. A lot of these people, they may not have Social Security 10 years down the road, and you don't have any family either. Who's going to take care of you? Family becomes, this is how it used to be, and we may get back to this point again in this country with $39 trillion in debt. We may have some tough times ahead. If you don't have family to rely on because you've chosen a solitary life, you're going to find out down the road that might have been a mistake.
Yeah, and hearkening back to Megan's dad one more time, one of his quotes, Family is everything. And it really is. And it feels like for a lot of years, we've talked about this country just being on this moral downward spiral. And it didn't happen all at once. It's just the little inroads, every small step along the way. Well, I'll be tolerant. You mentioned tolerance. I'll be tolerant to that. Okay, well, take it another step. Yeah, I'll be tolerant to that. And it's one step after the next, after the next, after the next, until you end up where we are.
Well, it started with the PC movement, everything being PC, politically correct. You can't say that. You can't say that. Everyone's, needing a cry room, and everyone being so sensitive about everything where, I think we need to be more honest about your feelings may get hurt and it's okay. You might not win the prize and it's okay. You can do better. But we're always the country where everybody gets a prize and we don't ever want to hurt anybody's feelings.
No more participation trophies for everybody.
No more participation trophies. We can't be afraid to offend people. Look, I stand for things that I believe in. And sometimes people find that offensive, I guess you could say. You've probably seen this clip. It's a little interview where this reporter's interviewing this lady. She's kind of a Southern lady. And she goes, well, do you see how that could be offensive? And the lady's like, why, yes, that's why I said it. And I think more than ever, we need people that are very intentional. I'm not trying to, I'm going to protect you. No matter who you are, no matter what your belief system is, I'm going to fight for your constitutional rights. But I don't want you to interject with your belief system into me or my family. I'm not asking for that, and that's not the American way. Just because you want acceptance doesn't mean the rest of us have to accept it or tolerate what you've decided is your normal. That's not what this is about. We need to allow people to live their life, minimal government, and we don't need you shoving your down or your self-righteousness if you think you're more righteous or more valiant than me or more correct than me because I believe a certain way. That's just not the way it needs to be, and we've got to get back to it. It's going to be a little painful and prickly getting back there, but we have no other choice but to go back to that. So there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings along the way, and that's why we need strong leaders. You got to have strong leaders that make tough decisions, and really those tough decisions are supported by more than half the people usually. There's a scripture in 2 Kings 6:16, and it says, and he answered, fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And so, we'd have to trust that the majority of the people are on the side of what is good and right. We just need leaders that will go out there and fight for it.
Well, and I think we're also dealing with this unofficial fourth branch of the government, which I know that you've alluded to, and I know you probably felt as well, which is the media presence, and they're influencing what's going on in our country, and a lot of times it's not correct, it's skewed, purposefully so, and there's no checks and balances on them, and they like to generate this image that the opposition to people who are holding beliefs like we're talking about today is so much grander than what it actually is.
Look, there's no money in when people get along. What they do, the money in the media is to constantly create crises, to constantly create conflicts between us. It's the same with government. Government creates conflicts so that they can then come in and say, we got a solution for it. We'll just need some more tax dollars and we'll fix this problem for you, only to make it worse. Look at Obamacare. That's what they want. We'll get you all insurance. And they made it far worse. And it's going to only get more painful to get it back to where it needs to be. These folks always think that they know better for you, what's best for you and your family. And nobody knows best what's for you and your family other than you. And that should be your decision, not the government's, not some social justice warrior who believes they're more woke than us. Frankly, most of those people are insane. I do a lot of videos. I do these body cam videos on YouTube at Real American Sheriff. Come check it out.
I love it. I've watched them.
And frankly, those people are unhinged. Like they're this close from losing their crap every day. And we're just walking around with ticking time bombs. And why? Because I always say I explain it as years ago, parents stopped doing conflict resolution. Part of the reason I'm sitting here in what we hope to be Lamb Ranch. And the reason we're doing this is we're pulling all of our family together. Our kids are going to be engaged in our businesses, and they're not kids, they're all adults. We have 7 grandkids, and we want those grandkids to learn the value of hard work. We want them to learn where their food comes from. We want them to learn hard work, that things don't always work out. Kids need to learn how to resolve their own conflicts. You can't get into a little fist fight in school anymore because we took that away. People don't learn that you shouldn't say something because you might get punched in the mouth. We took that away. And so now we have these kids who are getting into their early 20s, and all of a sudden they realize life is not that easy, and it's going to kick you and rough you up every chance it gets. And you fold like a cheap suit because your parents didn't allow you to resolve your own conflicts as you grew up, like we did in the 80s. Our parents said, hey, 70s. Our parents said, don't come back till the sun goes down. And guess what? We figured a lot of stuff out during the day. And I think we got to get back to that. Conflict resolution has killed this country because now we have this generation of young adults who literally have zero ability or very little ability to resolve conflicts in their lives. And they need help, and they need a therapist, and they need somebody to tell them it's okay. And maybe I got to be somebody else. Maybe I should change my gender. This is what happens when you don't let kids resolve conflicts at an earlier stage in life. Now they're trying to resolve it as an adult, and it's playing out horribly on society's field.
Oh yeah, and even driving. We're teaching our 16-year-old, and she's going to be 16. Mom, why don't people let you in? Like they're honking at you, or you're just slowing down to turn into Starbucks, and this person runs up and and honks at you, and you're just turning into the turn lane. I'm like, because they're angry. And
it wasn't a blue Dodge, was it? It wasn't.
We'll check the dash cam video.
Why are you getting so mad at this, folks? And I go, time is the one thing we cannot get back. And so I am very cognizant about time. And unfortunately, that might play out a little bit in my driving, but I'm doing better.
That's funny.
Well, speaking about driving, one of the issues that we see that I think is kind of tied to illegal aliens coming into the state is unlicensed drivers in our area. And the reason it's important, the reason we feel it in the practice that we have, the personal injury practice, is because so many of those on our roads that are driving like that are uninsured. And so they're causing accidents, they're causing injuries. That's an inevitable part of anybody driving, but they're just getting around the mandatory insurance requirements that we have to protect our citizens. And so I know here in Arizona, we require people to be able to prove that they're legally here to get a license, but it's not every state. And so is there something that you can foresee in Washington on a federal level trying to combat that here and help us with unlicensed drivers and uninsured drivers?
So I'm a real 10th Amendment guy. I think that the federal government has some very specific responsibilities in the Constitution, and then they've decided to push their way into the states. The Constitution said anything not enumerated in the Constitution should be managed by the states. So I first of all think we can do more as a state. I would like to see less federal government. I think there probably should be, that you could potentially do some laws that are on federal highways, because those are federal jurisdiction on those federal highways. But even then, I'm reluctant to give the federal government any more power than what they have. I want to shift. I know that doesn't answer the question. I do think we should have some stiffer penalties if you are caught, because then you'll learn your lesson, really, really quickly. Because my son, he had somebody crash into his car, ended up totaling the car. It didn't seem like it, but it totaled the car. And a couple guys in a construction truck, Hispanic guys, and they took off. Why? They didn't have insurance. And who ended up getting stuck with the bill? We did. And so it happens to everybody. I want to make a point on the immigration and the border security piece of it, and people being in this country illegally, illegal aliens in this country. A lot of people say, well, there's a lot of good people. Okay, Let's talk about those good people. For one, if they came into this country illegally, they broke the law. So we already have to say, how good are you? You didn't follow that law. And then if you are in this country illegally, like you just pointed out, you can't really have a driver's license unless you're in California and they just give them out, I guess, willy-nilly, which affects Americans, which you're talking about. Then you've got, if they don't have a driver's license, they don't have insurance, they are probably working under the table. So either they're working under the table and not paying insurance, or they're using somebody else's Social Security fraudulently, or they obtained a fraudulent Social Security number. They might be taking benefits, which we found out recently when the government shut down, how many illegals were taking benefits. You know, you take the Somalian community in Minnesota, 81% of those people, 73% are on Medicare. 81% are on federal assistance when they come into this country. Within 10 years, that number only reduces to 78%. So in 10 years, 3% of them managed to get off the government dole, or like I like to say, the government teat. So this is the problem. And you think that's only happening there? It's happening all across this country. So not only are they fleecing us of our monies and our programs that were designed for Americans, needy Americans, they're being taken advantage of by people that are not from this country. So the list goes on and on and on of infractions civilly and criminally because you came into this country illegally. So how good are they? If I would consider somebody that was a American citizen who continued to violate the law in those ways, we'd be like, hey, this guy's a turd, man. He keeps breaking all the laws. Yet we just continue to say, well, they're good people. They're breaking a lot of laws and a lot of things that we have to do and we pay, that we're required to pay. They don't have to do it.
No, it's unfair. And it's like I always tease and say, I'd like to go live in Italy, but that's illegal if I stayed there.
Right. It is. And those countries, they don't take kindly to you being in this country illegally. You know, you say it's not fair. And we've always said to our kids, we're always like, fair's for Democrats. You know, like if you want more out of this life, go work hard, push yourself, you know, take advantage of the opportunities we have as Americans. I don't look for fair. What I look for, though, is for the law to be enforced. And, you know, we have things in place that protect us from this kind of thing. And then we have Americans, predominantly Democrats, who continue to protect those people who don't want to play by the rules. Not only does it undercut the people who did go legally through the immigration process, it is a slew of victimized people. I want to go back real quick to the shooting in the guy that just shot that gal, a college student in Chicago. He was here illegally from Venezuela, came into the country illegally. He had been arrested before. I think if any illegal is arrested, they should be immediately removed from this country. I don't care if it's for trespassing. I don't care if it's a class 3 misdemeanor, whatever it is.
It seems like common sense.
Seems like common sense, but no. We just keep releasing these people. Well, they did. They released this guy. He got caught for shoplifting. They release him, and he ends up now killing this girl. And there was something I was going to say about that. They were saying, I lost my train of thought. So there was something that they were saying about this guy being in this country illegally. And this should have never have happened in the first place had they removed him when he committed. First of all, they shouldn't have let him in. Second of all, they should have removed him when he did commit that crime. He had a gun on him. That's against the law. Everything went wrong with this case. And Democrats are too quick to say, well, they're making excuses of why this might have happened. And maybe they shouldn't have startled him. Where did we get to this point where we're justifying an illegal aid? Oh, I know the point I was going to make. The point I was going to make is that one of them said, oh, illegals are not the ones committing the crimes. They have a lower crime rate. That's BS. Let me tell you why. When you commit a crime, there is no box to check for illegal alien. Trust me, the FBI crime statistics reports that we have to fill out, which I hate. When we have to submit those, there is no box to check for illegal alien.
Why?
Most of them, if you are Hispanic, you are listed as white. Oftentimes, a lot of African Americans are listed as white, but definitely Hispanic, there is no box. There's a box for blacks, there's a box for whites, there's a subcategory under whites for Hispanics. So if you pull those statistics up, it's going to look like whites commit the crime, it's not illegals. There is no box to check for somebody in this country illegally. So anybody who regurgitates a statistic about how illegals commit less crimes is uneducated as to what the reporting process is.
That's ridiculous. There's me, right? I'd be right in my own little box. Just kidding.
Well, the only way you would know is if it hits the media or somebody puts it in the report that that they were there illegally. But there is no box to check for the FBI statistics that we send to the FBI. And they have their specific things you have to check. And most of these crimes are listed, they will be listed as white.
That's a real problem. That's a real problem in the reporting, the statistics. It's a real problem in relying on the media to publicize the different issues that come up that they see with things like that.
Yeah, look, I could send you post after post, booking photo after booking photo. Go on and go to Maricopa County. They might do better, but go to some of these places, especially maybe a Chicago, and look at the booking photos. Many of them will be listed as white. And it's a large in part, it's done out of maybe they just did it too quick, but a lot of it is designed, a lot of it, they do it so they don't have to list who it was that commits the crime, because it starts to look very disparaging into the crime statistics. And once again, we don't want to offend people and we don't want to address issues. And so we just say, oh, let's just make it let's just scratch that box.
You know, it's funny. I have a personal story. When my dad was running for Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, the first time he ran, there was another guy running, and his hospitality room was, tons of people. The other guy, nobody. The next day, there were busloads of people coming to the hotel, and they were homeless people. And they were giving them coffee and donuts, and they're sitting there voting. And my dad lost by one vote, and it had the other guy's last name, my dad's first name. And I'm like, but Dad, these people didn't even know them. They were just homeless, and they were giving them donuts and coffee just to vote. And he's like, yep, that's how it works. The next time my dad did win, and he became Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, but the president of it. But it was just so funny to me watching that firsthand. And then one other thing with the fake news and Trump, I knew because I lived this life with my dad. When they started bombing Iraq, my dad got a page and he goes, I got to go secure Cook County. And I said, no, Dad, CNN says there's 38 hours left before we start bombing. He goes, oh no. He's like, we're bombing right now. And I said, no, but CNN says it's 30 something hours. I sat at home listening to my dad talk to his FBI contacts, securing Cook County while we're bombing Iraq. And they're talking on CNN like, if we were to start bombing, what do you think's going to happen? And that's why when it was so easy when Trump was saying there's fake news and everyone's like, he's lying, there's no fake news. I'm like, I was 18 years old and I saw fake news firsthand.
Yeah, same here. Look, I was in Panama during Operation Just Cause. And my dad raised me with a healthy distrust for government anyway. We have a saying in our house, I may not know the truth, but I know it ain't what the government's telling me. And so I saw firsthand, though, the media, the misleading they were doing during that invasion, with Noriega and stuff, because we were there and they would say things we're like, that's not the case. And so you realize it's all a bunch of BS. Like, honestly, the truth is very hard to find. And what I've tried to do with YouTube and social media is I've tried to vet out the truth as much as I can for people. And I think that we're hungry for authentic people that will go to DC and tell us the dadgum truth. And with AI now, it's become even harder. And so we're trying to give people an opportunity to say, and you may not like the truth. I get it. It may fall on you hard. What is the saying? I don't remember who it was, Socrates or somebody says, you want to offend a strong man, tell him a lie. You want to offend a weak man, tell him the truth. And that's where we're at in the society is we got a bunch of weak people that don't want to hear the truth because it hurts them. It hurts their sensitive little feelings. They're like little delicate flowers.
You're not wrong. So if people were watching from Arizona, what would you like to tell them that you would like to change in Arizona on a third grade level? Just basic stuff. I always try to tell Ken, just kind of bring down your legal mumbo jumbo so people can understand what you're saying here.
Well, I'm going to go third grade civics. This is what we should be learning in third grade. Is I am running for the U.S. Congress. So what I will be doing is anything that's a federal issue, anything within the state, I will support our state officials, state senators, state representatives, governor, hopefully Governor Biggs, or any of these other folks that are pushing to help the state laws. On a federal level, I hope to be the champion for anything on a federal level that affects Arizona positively or adversely. I want to make sure that I'm your representative fighting for you there. And I think we need it. Now, on another level, this is the greatest country in the world. It's so worth fighting for. It is our founding fathers fought for it, sacrificed for it, bled for it. I just think of the courage it took to sign your name on the Declaration of Independence, knowing that if you failed, it was a death warrant. The courage that it took for George Washington, General Mad Anthony Wayne, and so many other people who fought against the English and knew that, I mean, even right before the crossing of the Delaware, George Washington said, victory or death. We will have victory or death. They knew that this was either you succeeded or you failed. That's how great this country is, and it's worth fighting for. And I think that I want to be that fighter for you. I don't think everybody can and should run for office. I always joke that some of you should run for office, some of you shouldn't. I don't think that everybody's really made out for it, but we can send people that are willing to go, that represent us well, that understand the values. And I'm really getting back to the basics of God, family, freedom, and the Constitution. And I want to be the champion for Arizona. I hope to bring pride to citizens of Arizona when they say, especially CD5, when they say we have the best representative in Washington, D.C. We got some other great guys, Eli Crane, Abe Hamadeh, Juan Ciscomani. We got some really great men. I would love to be that champion for the people of Arizona.
Well, I love that, and we support you.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. And if people want to keep up with you directly without just having to get it from outside sources, where can they find everything that you're up to?
Yeah, honestly, don't trust the outside sources. You already talked about it. You want to know what you did wrong in life? Run for office. You'll find out whether you did it or didn't do it. You're going to find out what you did. The majority, I've never heard a truthful thing, to be honest with you. The things they say are just, but that's part of it. Look, I've accepted that I'm in the arena, and the peanut gallery is oftentimes lying and not great. So if you want it directly, go to marklam.us. We'll send you out probably too many emails, but you can support us. You can donate money there, and we'll take the prayers that you got. The other piece is, if you want to continue to support me and you don't, outside of the politics, on YouTube, it's at Real American Sheriff, and then also at Lamb Investigations. We're also going to be doing a new homesteading, ranching channel where we're showcasing family values, working together, fighting, raising our own food, growing gardens, doing all the things. It's going to be fun. So check into that, and I would love the support on that level as well.
Oh, that's so fun. I love that.
We'll definitely have to tune into that as well. That sounds great. Well, we really appreciate you being here today. It's really been an honor to have you, and we just wish you all the best. You've got our prayers for sure.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on, and God bless you both as well. Thanks for letting me talk so much today.
Yeah, we love it. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.